And now we're going to add a few more details to our barn. When we left that off, we just put a couple of barnwoods on the sides. Now we're going to add a little bit more detail. Get a finer brush. Okay. All right, so now we're going to be adding a few more details to our old building. We're going to take some of that dark brown that you have for the sepia and add a little bit of ultramarine blue, so it's not so brown and more grayish old. So we're just going to define just this top here is important in the shade. Under this area of the boards, we're going this way. Again, we're not going to draw each board, we're just going to draw a suggestion of some of the boards. Now, if you look at any old barn, what's interesting is it's not the old board, sometimes it's the holes, it's the gaps that exist between. So you're going to draw some of these a little bit wider than others. Because as you can, if you look at your photo, if you look at old barns, the spacing is not even, and the boards have actually shrunk quite a bit. So just the different directions. Sometimes the gaps are quite significant. Sometimes the boards are missing entirely. So we're going to draw a few of those. Again, some gaps thicker, some gaps thin. Just vary it through your painting. It's important to have not only the lines just in the middle, but you need some coming off from the edge. Just defines some of the shapes a little bit more. And I tend to stay away from the boards a lot from the bottom, defining a lot of the bottom, because as you can see, remember we blended that edge. So we don't need it to go too far. That's probably all I'm going to do at the board at this time. And then we're going to do the ones in the back. You can see you don't need a lot of details on this. Just a few of these. And so I'm going to show some places that almost entire boards are missing. So I'm going to show bigger gaps. There you are. So I think you can see that. I like to show the wider gaps. And then what we're going to do is we're going to paint in the boards that are showing through with that root. But in this case, we're not painting the boards, we're painting the gaps between the board that to show off the boards. So that's called negative painting. As you can see in this area here, there's a board stops halfway and there's a whole gap. So I've loaded my brush with that dark sepia and ultramarine blue, and I'm just going to paint the gap around the board. And I'm going to paint a little bit of that gap here. Negative painting in itself is a whole practice. It's not always easy just to paint in reverse. So you might have noticed that these boards are much lighter than the other boards. It's because they're in full sun. So the next thing we're going to do for our little building is we're going to be painting the roof. I'm going to take a bit of burnt sienna and mix it to that sepia. And we're going to be able to have a nice sort of somewhat reddish roof that seems to have aged. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is just put a wash on it. This roof, as you can see, is darker than that one. So I'm going to put a little bit more in here. Too much water on my brush. That's what happens with these wonderful brushes. Sometimes they Scotto brushes hold a lot of water. I love that for them. All right, so let's go in here, draw this roof. There's not a lot of texture on this roof, and I don't think we need a lot of texture on this roof. We've got a lot going in this painting with all the trees and the branches. We don't want to distract too much. I'm just going to do a bit of dry brushing when all of this is dry, and that's going to be enough. When you were painting your barn, you should put a little bit of shadow underneath the rooftop. All right. So this rooftop's a bit more in the sun. So we're going to put a lit, just watching if this little area is dry. So I'm going to try to stay around. I'm going to wet my roof a little bit more. It's bigger surface and I want it to be somewhat even. So this is the main roof. We're going to mix up the colors in here to make it a little interesting. So sometimes a little bit more of that mix we just used here, just a little bit washed out. And then we're going to dump in some straight on burnt sienna. I've got a lot of brush, a lot of water on my brush today. And then repaint that overhang in a second. A little bit, too much pigment. All right. You may need 2 washes for this because my paper is quite wet. Turn this around so I can control it a little bit better. I turn my paintings around a lot. I think that's one of the advantages of working with 300-pound paper. I could move it a lot. There's my roof again. Put a bit more burnt sienna in here. Got a little bit darker at the top. And I'm going to paint the other overhang. So we're going to have to let this dry and see what else we do to this rooftop.